I have no audio. That's great. Okay, I'm going to start this again from scratch. Here we go. Welcome everyone to this week's Member Roundtable. Thank you for dealing with my technical issues we've had so far. This session should be a really good one. We've got so much to cover, and I'd love if you guys would drop in the chat what industries you're currently serving, because what we try to do in these sessions is we definitely try to personalize it so that you guys can get the most out of the session. Now, today we're talking strategy. And when most businesses set goals to grow, a lot of the time they will immediately jump onto tactics that they think will make an impact. So these tactics can really involve things like refreshing the logo, enhancing the website, even posting more on social media. And although these are all important things, that is not what strategy is. And so this can actually result in some unfortunate things happening. Number one, the business owner will get super disheartened and frustrated because they're putting all of these resources into things and they're not necessarily going to see the results. Then, for example, if you've got like a small business where maybe they've taken on a junior marketer, the junior marketer gets put on this task wheel where they're constantly churning out tasks, but they're also getting pressure and they're being disheartened because there is no strategy and they can't expect to get amazing results without one. I'm sure you guys have been in these types of scenarios. Maybe you're even going through this now. If you are, let me know. Pop your comments and issues that you're currently having, because we will do our best to try and give you some actionable steps. But with that being said, you can actually tweet us as well. If you use the hashtag #FurLow, you will be featured during the event. So if you have a comment you really want to get out there, definitely there's where to post it. But with that being said, let's move on and introduce our guests for today. We have a really good lineup in terms of the panel. First of all, we have Laura Bernhard. It's her first time being on the show, and she is the founder of a six-figure social media agency called Bound Agency. Next up, we have Erika Ferreira, operations manager of Glacier Peak Holistics. Erika's great. I'm sure for many of you guys in the community, you've seen her in the chat. She drops fire information. She's so approachable. So super happy to have her on the show today. And next up, we have Trevor Longino. Trevor was on the roundtable a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, he just drops fire. He is I guess I would call him a veteran in the startup world. He is the founder of Crowd Tamers and has launched over 50 startups in his time, which is amazing. Next up, we have Miguel Perez-Jaen, also known as Mike. He is Furlough's very own media buyer for Meta and TikTok ads, very much specializing in the e-com space, working with 7 to 8 figure DTC brands. Next up, we have our data analyst here at Furlough, Laurence Estillore. Laurence knows GA4 like no other. Like GA4 is new, obviously, and a lot of people are having a really tough time with it. Laurence is literally our go-to. So kudos to him on that. And last but finally not least, we have Ophir Gadot, my very own co-founder here at Furlough. For those of you who don't know Ophir, which I'm sure most of you guys do, Ophir is a 4-time startup figure, very proud father, and yeah, he scaled a ton of brands. So with that being said, now's the time to definitely start dropping your questions. Anything you're stuck on, this is definitely the time to use it. But I'm actually going to get us started. Now, obviously, I talked earlier about brands using tactics rather than strategy when they're actually executing their marketing efforts. So what I'd love to start with are, in your guys' opinion, what would the fundamental steps be to actually start crafting a marketing strategy? Because a lot of business owners, they've not necessarily done that before. Maybe they've come across luck and they've gotten to, they've gotten past like level 1 in terms of their business, but they're wearing so many different hats, and eventually like they're not going to be able to do it all. But then there's the lack of education as well. So yeah, definitely let me know. And this is open floor. Anybody can start. I don't want to put pressure on anyone.
So do you think when you're trying to launch a marketing strategy, and particularly if it's your first one, you're suffering from a cold start problem, like you haven't done this before? What you want to do is find a framework that's going to help you answer the initial steps you have to take to figure out how to build a customer journey, how to get this all started. Your strategy really is understand this journey first, because I deal with startups every day. I talk about 10 founders a week, and their initial first problem almost inevitably is, I built a thing, I sold it to 2 people who know me. Now what the hell? So the answer is you have to find out who is your audience, what is their problem, and how do you offer to fix it? And then once you know that information, how do you make a journey that takes them from I have a problem to I bought your solution? And my agency deals with that cold start problem pretty much exclusively. So I tend to have a very kind of color by number strategy of just do that, right? If this is your first marketing campaign, do that. And once you've answered that, then you can build some more advanced strategies and think deeper about what you're trying to accomplish. It should always start and end with what's the revenue goal and how do I get there?
And to build off what you guys said before is kind of knowing the difference between a tactic and a strategy. Tactic is usually something that you implement and it takes like a few hours, maybe a week, maybe a month, but a strategy is something that you're going to try for 6 months to a year. You're dedicated to it. So let's say a content strategy, that means you are going to be creating content for a year nonstop and see where that takes you. And just, I want to add one other little thing is, I think what's important about marketing strategies is to analyze your current resources and see what you can do with your current resources. People have an idea of what a strategy should be, and it includes a podcast and content and ads and all of these things, when in reality, you can only afford creating organic content. So really just understanding where you are at right now and then committing to it for a very long time.
I love that. We actually spoke with 2 guys. It was actually yesterday, and they were pretty new to the space in terms of e-com. And we really had to let them know. And by the way, just an FYI, they did amazing. For their first e-com store, I was really impressed with all the effort that they put in. The site was super clean, but they were actually like quite confused about where to start, because quite a lot of the time, like they'll want to put their budget and efforts into something that's not really appropriate. Like, for example, like if you don't have flows on email, but you want to put all the money into ads, well, you know, how are you going to focus on, you know, once the ad drives revenue, how does that translate into turning 1-time customers to 2 to 3? So I definitely think there is a big gap on the education standpoint that can affect how a strategy is, you know, actually executed and how it's planned. And I think a lot of people try and do this sort of copy and paste method, which might not be necessary for the stage of their business. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pitfalls. But how would you guys go about sort of defining goals and getting to the point where, you know, you realize if this strategy is appropriate for your business or not?
So because it's quiet, I'll take it myself. For me, it's always a question, and I want to connect to what Laura just mentioned and Trevor. It's always a question of how I tie the goals to what I have and what I'm capable of accomplishing, right? Because just putting out the goals for the sake of putting goals is not efficient, right? So I want to be mindful of resources I have, my capabilities right now, and what's my immediate goals that, you know, that impacts the business growth. Now we can say goals. So I want to tie always, and this is for me, I'm a performance marketer by nature. So I care about how this actually impacts the business. A lot of companies have different approaches. You know, I've seen campaigns that the sole strategy was awareness or visibility or likeness or whatever it is, right? But for me, goals, because I'm investing money as a business, it needs to come back in a business way. So I want to tie goals to my initial business results that really impacts my growth. And lastly, I think that something that worked for me is to put few sets of goals, meaning solid, great, and not so good. You know what I mean? So I have different benchmarks to aim for, and I can kind of do modifications on the fly as I go with the strategy, as I see the goals kind of happening in front of us.
I would love to build off of that. Oh, sorry, did I cut someone off?
No worries.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to go quickly. I apologize. So based off exactly what everyone is saying, actually just what you said, Ophir, is connecting your marketing tactic or your marketing strategies to revenue, especially at the beginning. I don't know our audience very well, so I don't know if you guys are just starting or if you guys are more along the journey of like you already. But when you're just starting, maybe like a content strategy is not very good because it takes, 3 to 6 months to get things started. And so I can just give you an example. When I started my business, I'm a content business. I help people with content. So you would assume that would be my primary strategy to grow my business. And at the beginning, it was not. It was not. It was making connections, getting referrals, doing things like that. So if any of you are stuck in one of these situations where you're not sure what to do next, I highly recommend just reaching out to anybody on LinkedIn. People on LinkedIn are more than happy to help you. People ask me all the time. So if you guys have a question, you can message me directly on LinkedIn or in this chat, but just ask someone in marketing or ask someone who already has a business, and I guarantee that they will be willing to help you.
But I beg
your pardon. Please go.
Okay, no problem. So often we have so many goals in place and plans and also strategies of we're on the right track, and I feel many people are on the right track, and we follow that route, and then after 2 or 3 weeks we realize that not much has happened in that time. So I think it's also very important to have a time attached to our goals and our strategies, and to have to go back and say, okay, in 3 weeks or in 1 month, this is going to be done in 1 month, this is going to be 6 months, and this is going to be in a year, because I find myself in that. I have all these great plans and I think they all can work well, but then 1 month has passed and I haven't done much to that goal. So I think many times we do have the right plans and strategies in place, but we don't follow up often enough to see that we are on track. So with those goals, it's good to say, okay, this one's going to take me 5 days realistically, or 1 month, and then put reminders to keep track of that.
I think that's an excellent point, Erika. I think one thing, when you're building a strategy, like the timelines I run my business on, I have my daily to-do list, my weekly planning, my monthly project goals, my quarterly OKRs, and my annual plan. Like those 5. And every month I'm revisiting the quarter. Every quarter I'm revisiting the annual. Like you look forward. That's really important. But also de-risking what you're doing with your strategy is super important. Since we're strategy and fundamentals, I'll throw something out here, and then maybe we'll go to Yusuf's question after. Right. So I think I talked about your trinity you're looking at here. You want to talk about audience, you want to talk about problem, you want to talk about offer. And when you put those together, that gives you a base to begin to understand your audience. But if you go from there and you say, I am trying to, by the way, Rachel, I happen to have slides. If you want to throw them on screen, we can, or not, either way.
I like that.
I'm prepared. So
You
audience,
are.
problem, and offer, right? These 3 are your trilogy you want to get to. And a funnel is both an awful way to think of things and a great one, because a real funnel, everything that goes in the top comes out the bottom. That's the freaking point. When we talk about this array of funnels, you might consider it like different size sieves, but whatever, we all know the word funnel, so we'll use it. And when you go through, this is the Pirate Metrics funnel. This is Dave McClure invented it. I didn't come up with it. But each of these gaps here between awareness and acquisition, and between acquisition and activation, you want to have a strategy to solve every one of these gaps for your business. If you're tackling each of these gaps in this churn, because like awareness is, hey, here's an ad, yay, look at me. And then come to a landing page, right? Acquire, I want to get your email address. I want you to buy a shoe, whatever it is. Then if it's a SaaS product or we're an agency, right? We're not getting people to immediately give us money. I got your lead, activate, download something from me, have a conversation with me, book a sales call, whatever. Retention is get a second sales call, get a contract, get ready to actually buy, and then finally convert. You need to have answers for each of these gaps, because every time that you do something and you give your lead something to take from their own action, some will go away. And you want to minimize how many of them go away. From the top of the funnel to acquisition, it's like 98% bounce, right? You just accept that. But if you got a 90% bounce from retention to revenue, from folks who know you, talk to you, and then don't buy, like you got 99 problems, son, but a business ain't going to be one for long. So like that idea and working through something even as simple as this is going to give you a strategy you can then use to build this out. And when you de-risk all these pieces, something I like to do, right? The success of your whole business starts with who you attract, who you acquire, who comes to you. And so what I like to do is say, you can answer all your fundamental business questions for $100, which sounds ludicrous. Ophir, I am also a performance marketer. That's where I come from. So this $100 is all about launching something with confidence in data and answering 3 core questions right now. Can I find people out there who might want to buy from me? Here's an example. This is a crazy one, but I invented a terrible product called ice noodles. It's noodles that cool down your soup, whatever. I have an idea for soup that cools, and I want to see different people might want to buy my soup. So I take an ad campaign. These are ugly ads. These are heavily inspired by Mint CRO teaches this. I've been doing this for like a decade, but I've seen them doing it recently, and I like how they structure it. So whatever. I'm seeing who wants to buy my stupid ice noodles. And I test the ice noodles messaging here to 4 different audiences. And I say, did they care, right? Are they engaged? What's my core metric look like? What's the audience size? What's my click-through rate on these stupid freaking ice noodle ads? What did I pay to get these clicks? Right. So we've gone from strategy. I'm trying to get you through my funnel to a tactic. Spend $100 and just take 48 hours and test ads to these people. And you'll find, hey, who's my best performing, like this lady here. These are all AI created people. This lady here, click-through rate's really high, but audience size is 40K. I probably can't make a living on an audience of 40K for a B2C consumer product. On the other hand, not quite as good, but 360K or 1.4 million, like I can probably find a way to make recurring business off of this big an audience. So now I can start to model out, right? What are my costs to bring people to my website? What should I expect a landing page conversion look like? And, again, 48 hours, one ad campaign, and an ugly ad. Anybody on this call could make this ad. You can learn things. And then once you've done it once, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. Once you've done 2, 4, 6 of these, you really have the information you need to understand how your strategy needs to be steered by what the market wants. So there's a fundamental I'll offer for you, a minimum viable marketing sprint. That can get you up and running.
I love that. I think I've seen a lot of business owners, especially on like the smaller side, who tend to start a business more so because they're enthusiastic about the thing rather than trying to fulfill a need. And I think quite a lot of the time what can happen is they'll put a lot of money into starting up the business and they'll launch and then they'll think, damn, I wish I'd done it the other way around. And I think everybody goes through some sort of mistake in business that they think, oh, I wish I did this prior. This would have saved me a lot of money, a lot of time, all this kind of thing. It's unfortunate. I think it's just a fact of life, isn't it? And I think you just can't be too hard on yourself. I think people are very self-loathing when it comes to their business mistakes.
We've all made those mistakes. All of us.
Yeah.
Everyone who's made a mistake, put your hand up. Okay, everyone. All of us.
My member deep dive I'm doing next month is how to bleep up launching your marketing agency. So yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes.
I do want to. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go first, Laura?
Oh, I was just going to answer the question because I see it pop up like working strategy, and the more and more that I build my agency, I just realize you can find anything on YouTube. Like literally, just type in marketing strategies and watch YouTube. But the ways to apply it, don't just learn. I learned for about 6 years before I started. Woo! So definitely start applying everything that you're learning and make sure it's close to your business. It's related to your business. Don't just out of nowhere. If it's related to your business and you can get qualified leads from there, then do it. So you still have to be selective, but definitely just start on YouTube to answer your question.
Yeah. At the same time, once you start learning on YouTube, you will be able to filter out who really knows and who's not really teaching you marketing.
Yeah.
So you'll be learning at the same time how to filter who has the knowledge and who's just selling you something.
Great. Also,
with the sound.
Oh, I think
the audio is not coming through.
Can't hear.
Oh, Laurence, are you maybe on mute?
Might be signal.
Just while we're disambiguating sound check, Levi asks, what's the name of the funnel? That's Pirate Metrics Funnel. Because it goes awareness, acquisition, activation, revenue, referral, retention, AARRRR, like a pirate. We're very fun.
I like it. I see, Tom, you jumped right onto that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Have we found sound for Laurence?
Don't think so.
No, but I just want to add one point on this because oftentimes we forget it. So yes, I joined Laura's statement and I think it's the most important. Strategy is happening by doing, not by planning. Just saying, like everything in life, you need to get the first steps going. You need to get things in motion for something to happen. Second, and this comes back to the previous discussion we had about goals. Before getting your analytical stack in place, no point in running anywhere because you don't know what's happening. So before everything else, get your analytical stack in place. Check, see the goals actually populating up. See that you can track what you want to achieve. See that you can understand, you have clear visibility on what you're doing. And lastly, I'll say, because you're starting out, be moderate to full expectations. You're starting out for the first time. Don't go 10 channels deep, 20 personas deep, and then go crazy with so many segments and different campaigns and different targeting. Go simple. You have your core customer. When I say core customer, and this is something it's crazy because most brand owners don't even know how to answer this. But think that every brand, every company, you have your go-to customer. The one that like this is what they need more than anything else. Build a market plan around them. This is the people you want to engage with. If you can engage with them, the rest will fall in place. You'll figure out other places to communicate. You'll see the differences between them in different segments. But again, focus on them, on their key marketing channel, their key placement. This is where you want to start.
Hello.
Sorry,
Hi, you're back.
Sorry. I think it's a problem with the connection. Anyway, thank you for adding that information over here. But yeah, it's also important for businesses or startups to invest on their data. And of course, eventually, at the start, you might not be able to see how important it is. But eventually, as you run your business, data is an important thing in making your decisions. And with that, I would really suggest to invest on tools while there are tools that are free, because this data will help you understand the behavior of your audiences, which will definitely give you better strategies and tactics that you mentioned a while ago. So the moment that you set up your website, don't hesitate or immediately set up something that will track your data, which is, for example, Google Analytics. And yeah, on your social media, there are also other insights or that they can provide. So I think that's one advice that I have.
I love that. That actually happened to me, by the way. My first business, I had a cafe and it was vegetarian, vegan. And I thought I was going to get all these young, like spring chickens coming into my cafe. And the majority of my clientele were actually elderly. Like that was the customer base that actually drove my business. And it was a shock to me because I didn't create it with that intention in mind. But, you know, the data doesn't lie. Like you can see who's coming in and, you know, signing up to your events and things like that. So yeah, always go off the data. You can use your assumptions as a hypothesis, but quite often they will be wrong. We do have another question from Tom, and I love this one, by the way. What do you think about the fight between marketing and sales? Oof.
Before we get into that,
oh, beg your pardon. Go ahead, Laura.
I was just gonna build off of what you said before. Like we were talking about data, and data also talking to your customer. So for me as a service-based business, I don't have that many data points. They're useful, but the most useful part about obtaining data from my clients is just having a conversation with them. So also consider that as a data point. I just wanted to add that on. I do have a hot take about marketing and sales, though.
Yes, spill the beans.
I don't think you guys are going to like it. But this is my perspective, is that slowly, marketing and sales are becoming one function. Oh, don't hate me. But they're becoming more and more one function because you can't have one without the other. And before my my agency, I was the director of marketing. And like without working with sales, without working together, there was nothing. And so, yeah, and Tom continued his question, how do these co-live together? And from a marketer's perspective, how do you position marketing as a strategic function in your business? Because marketing makes your brand last beyond what sales can do. If you get rid of your salespeople, then you don't have sales. But your marketing keeps your brand alive and keeps funneling your sales funnel. That would be my answer. Anyway, I'll stop talking. Okay.
I'm curious who here has. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No, what were you going to say? You're curious?
I was just wondering how many of us have letter managed sales teams versus letter managed marketing team. Like, have you letter managed a sales team? Raise your hand. We have 1, 2. A letter managed a marketing team. Raise your hand. So it was actually okay. So then I think definitely, Mike, you've done both. Ophir, you've done both. I think your insights in particular, right? How do these two fit together? I think that would be really valuable.
So I think it really depends on the company's size and culture. It really depends. Small company, it could be one person for marketing and one person for sales, and they need to be buddies for this shit to work, right? They need to communicate good. They need to be able to understand what's going on. But I still think like sales by nature is the one that brings the stamp of the conversion. So by nature, sales always will have more power and leverage in front of the ownership. Because I have someone who's a closer, you know what I mean? I can drive as many leads, and I can see when I compare between sales reps that I have ones that bring more business than the other, regardless of marketing. So sales have that advantage because they're on the bottom of the funnel. If sales and marketing are gonna be the same, I think it's tough. It's tough, especially in corporate. Somebody needs to blame someone for enough something doesn't work. And if I'm a marketer, and I'm telling I did lead gen for a lot of brands in my life, and when the leads are not converting, it's always the sales. It's always the sales fault. And when the sales are converting, it's always the sales credit. It's not. So it's always gonna be like who thinks and who tries to finding that situation where marketing says sales are amazing and sales says, wow, the marketing leads are phenomenal. Very unusual. Very unusual. I think I've seen it maybe twice in my life. So I think that tension is inherited, and it's very hard to remove it. And I still think that the key is understanding the importance of both functions and facilitating good communications between the two, so it won't be a fight but a dance, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I like that. It's a dance, because I do think the two go hand in hand. Because I think the marketing is more to show the company to others, and you go get the right customers to the audience, and you showcase what you can offer. Where I think the salesperson is a more active person who can close a deal. So I think the marketing goes out and show what is there to offer and get the right audience. But I think it's very important. I don't think all marketers are salespeople, and I don't think all salespeople have an eye for marketing. So I think the two, like Ophir saying, is a dance together. I think they go very hand in hand together.
If you want to be able to show the strategic value of marketing, one of the best tools I know of for this, and I would note, I remain tremendous friends with the salesperson who led the sales at a hardware company I was CMO at, and then eventually head of product at. So you can get along. But the hot take there is sales and marketing have the same goal in the end, which is make money. If marketers think their job is to drive leads, they're wrong. And if a marketer says, I drove the salesperson lead, the lack of conversion is their fault, your marketer is wrong. But the way you get strategy on the table is to say, this is what the full funnel requires. And I know if I can predict if I get this much at awareness, we convert it consistently into this much at revenue. And then the strategic discussion becomes, my funnel has to get this much here, or we do not make enough money to stay alive. And if you have those hard metrics to drive it, it is very hard. Like there's politics, there's emotions, there's different people have different weight in a company's board. That's fine. If you have the hard numbers to say this is what must occur in order to produce this, it removes the stress and it gives you a seat at the table strategically to say, this is not up for debate what needs to happen to reach this outcome. It's just which outcome do we wish to reach. I can now come in and weigh in on those. I found that as useful.
I like that a lot. Do we have any final thoughts on this until I move on to Tom does have another fight question, which I want to address. We good? We ready? Okay. When is the time to invest in brand marketing? And when is the time to focus on performance marketing? So many people don't know the answer to this, by the way.
I will say answer for that, but you go first.
I would say that you should first focus on performance marketing than in brand. The goal should be to acquire sales, acquire customers. That should be the goal of marketing. And once you are big enough, you can maybe focus on brand awareness or some kind of that more on that way. But first should be performance marketing. And if it can always be performance marketing, it also is bringing you brand awareness at the same time.
Mm.
We good? We good on this consensus?
I want to add one thing. There is no time where you don't do performance marketing that is profitable. There is no such situation. I do brand marketing, I do whatever. Yeah, but there's no clash. Performance marketing that is profitable, you do at every point, at every time. Like it's a no-brainer for me. I make money from doing it. So always doing performance marketing.
So one thing I like about performance marketing and the brand marketing question, I would note, Ophir, Airbnb did this case study where they stopped all performance spend, shifted only to brand, and made more money. I would also note they were Air frickin' BNB. Nobody and listening to this stream is Airbnb, so this is not necessarily relevant for you. But if you're clever with your performance marketing spend, it looks like brand marketing, just like Mike said. I was running for a fintech company that was quite small. They were doing cold email outreach. And so what we would do is for 2 weeks before they got their cold email, we would advertise to those email addresses on LinkedIn with just straight brand impressions. And we found performance marketing that looked like brand marketing there improved cold email reply rates 15%. Just because they'd seen the brand a couple times. So they get the email and they go, oh yeah, you guys are everywhere. Right? So that was a performance marketing spend, but it was pure impression based and looks like brand advertising. And so if you can tie together, right, that these are coming together and not just I'm spending money because it's fun, then it's worth investing in brand marketing before you really have a complete full funnel from performance. But then this all comes back to strategy. It has to come to metrics, to revenue. We had an idea. We wanted to try it. We tried it for 6 weeks. We saw it improve email performance. And so we kept investing.
I like that. I like that a lot. We do have a few more questions. So we do have one from Joe. As an agency owner, at what point do you start running ads for client acquisition?
So I'm kind of in that position right now. And I think that you start running ads when you have proven profitable as a service-based business. This is just my experience. Once you have profit and things are running and you're like, oh, okay, you're going to have enough clients to identify which ones are the most profitable, which ones you want to work with, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when you can start doing ads. You don't want to do ads if you have 5 clients and they're 5 different industries. You can't do ads like that. So really doing ads, target audience, and you understand, your ICP, their pain points, and you can market ads towards that specific audience. And sometimes that takes 3 months, sometimes that takes 2 years. So there's no specific timing on it. It depends on your business and where you are in your journey.
I think that's excellent advice, Laura. I would note, my minimum viable marketing sprint is all about running performance marketing, buying ads, but not for client acquisition, for client comprehension. And so when you've learned that, then maybe you want to shift to acquisition if you've proven this works. But I completely agree. On the pure acquisition play, I would not invest on ads until I know who my niche is, which actually I think brings up one of the next questions we have.
Yes, so we do have a question from Bruno. As an agency owner, when to niche down your potential customers and when not to do it?
I take it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Bruno, the moment you have a client that you say, this is the client I like, this is the kind of business I want to do, this is the kind of experience I want, this is it. Niche down.
As long as they're profitable.
Yes.
Some clients are demanding. You're like, ooh. You're like, I like them, but yikes.
I mean, there's like as a person, and there's like as a business, right?
It's hard for me to like someone who's not making me money as an agency owner. Just saying. It needs to make money for me to like him.
I would say that if he can repeat the process with a new client, what he did with the first client, then yes, that's when this process works. Let's just keep duplicating it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I would note in the agencies channel, on Discord. By the way, if you're listening here on some channel and you're not on Furlough's Discord, go freaking join Furlough's Discord. But on the agency channel on Discord, I see at least once a week someone's posting like, "Hey, I want to do e-commerce marketing," and people are like, "That's not a niche. You can't do that." And then I see, like, I just saw this week somebody in the channel post they want to do marketing services for roofers, and like,
Oh, wow.
that's a niche. And he showed, he posted all of his DMs, everything, how it worked, and he was showing how even this is a 15-year-old who's running a marketing agency for roofers, and he showed how this is what I post, this is what I say, this worked for me. And I'm like, yeah, of course it did. You're marketing just to roofers, and you say that's who I work with, and that is what's going to give you a niche that will, as Bruno says, I think niches make you rich. No, Joseph said niches make you richers.
Yeah.
It's all about that.
People think an
Oh.
audience is like women. Like, what? They're like, I'm going after men. That's not.
What would you say you need to define who you're going after?
Okay, so I can give you from my experience again, because as an agency, it's a little bit different than if you're in e-commerce, but I look for identifiers. So because I help people with content, social media content specifically, are my target audience who are already posting on social media. So that is part of my ICP, my ideal customer profile, because knowing that they already post on social media tells me that they already value social media. I don't have to go to someone and try to convince them to post on social media. That's not what I want to do. And so finding identifiers to help you identify the people you want to work with, that can be two identifiers, 4 identifiers. That depends on your business, but those identifiers are extremely helpful in your ICP.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like when people know the value of something, it's much easier to convert them.
Yeah.
Just in my experience, it goes towards like the education aspect as well. I think if you have to educate them from scratch, well, it's a much longer process, and they're going to be like, you have to prove to them, especially if it's something like email marketing. Like before I got into email, I thought there's no way email marketing's a thing. And then I was dead wrong. It's maybe the most inaccurate thing I've ever thought in my entire life. So to have to convince somebody from scratch, yeah, quite difficult. We do have another question from Jacob. I want to hear from the panel, what is the #1 strategy /tool/tip you recommend for landing leads or tracking users' behavior on your website?
I think it varies wildly. Are you e-commerce? Are you an agency? Are you SaaS? Like, it's quite broad, but I guess we're all agency owners here for the most part, right?
I assume it's B2B just because of the leads mentioned.
Yeah.
I assume it's B2B. I'll say, so obviously analytics is like the basic. Obviously Apollo.io is a very good product. I know you know that as well, Jacob. I like Pipedrive a lot for managing prospects. And in terms of tracking users' behavior, it's like it goes deep, man. It goes deep. You can go with Hotjar, you can go with Clarity, you can go with it depends on how far you're going and what's the traffic volume. And the reason is I think that a lot of analytic people, they go too deep on analytics when the traffic is insignificant. And the worst thing you can do is install Hotjar and start looking at the insights when you have 20 visitors a day. So, and in B2B, it's more likely to be like that. So I would say you can remain with analytics and goal tracking until you get to the 10,000 visitors a month. And then I would recommend going somewhere Hotjar or Clarity or products like that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Do
you have any? I think that you have to consider is when you're running B2B, a lot of how you source deals isn't actually on your website. And you want to make sure you're counting that too, right? LinkedIn is, I think, my number one source for revenue right now. My website's number 2. But if I were not tracking every conversation I have in LinkedIn and putting those into my CRM manually right now, because I am still figuring out how much of this I wish to automate. So if I weren't tracking all that manually and putting it in my CRM and comparing that to what my website leads are doing, I'd be missing like 2/3 of my revenue picture, which is obviously awful. So for whatever your business might be, right? Maybe TikTok is where your leads are coming from, even B2B, who knows, right? Make sure you're capturing that data and then pulling it all into one dashboard to see.
Solid advice.
I think so. So LinkedIn, that's interesting. That's a really interesting insight, Trevor, that LinkedIn drives a lot of your revenue. I do want to touch on something that is always top of mind, I'm sure, for anyone who's in marketing. So obviously, as we go through 2023, marketing trends keep evolving, right? And they've done so since the dawn of time. So how do we actually stay involved in emerging technologies, but also consumer behaviors, because consumers are just not acting like they did, let's say, obviously in 2020. So I'd love to hear any insights that you guys have on this.
Well, I can say something for the company that I'm working with, because we are e-commerce store and we have wholesale customers and then we have retail customers. So we sell via social media, our website, Amazon, everything. And a trend that we figured that changed since 2020 was our wholesale customers have become less smaller, and many of them fell away. It's like, it seemed like many people who started shopping online, they continued shopping online. So we're actually going through a phase now that we consider stopping all wholesalers, because the revenue we get from wholesale is far less than retail. So our whole company have changed. So people continue shopping online since 2020 for us. So that was an interesting find that we find. So we're moving away from wholesale because of that.
That's crazy. But marketing is always changing, because like consumer behavior is changing, your industry is changing, there are new competitors, and just like I'm getting all my leads, all my clients from LinkedIn as well. Like right now, I think 75% of users a year or so on LinkedIn. So it's just booming. It's just people are changing platforms. So it's really going back to your ICP, just understanding where they're hanging out and finding that information as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I can also
Correct. And also,
ahead,
just to
Laurence.
add, sorry, we also need to make sure that our company is also doing tests in our marketing campaigns, because this way we'll understand if there are changes in our audiences or user behavior. So part of that is to perform A/B testings or marketing tests on your campaigns. So that's one suggestion as well.
I would say
And
also
definitely-
just talking to the client, like having a conversation with your customers, having surveys with them, talking with them, seeing where they are, what they're doing, where do they find you, like trying to talk, just talking with them and learning from them to really understand the new trend, the new platform, the new audience, anything. You can just by having a conversation with them.
And I do think, as Laurence was saying, and also I think what Mike is saying, when you talk to people quantitatively, they'll tell you more than they will tell you. Like if you have 3 interviews with somebody, people lie because they want to sound nice to you, but the quantitative data is what will tell you like the truth. A relevant example, I made about 300K in a year growing my agency purely by answering people's questions on Facebook. That's all I did. I answered questions on Facebook, pointed people back to my agency, and just was booking like 3, 4, 5 sales calls every week. It went really well. And then that was 2020. And then come around 2021, people just weren't asking the same questions on Facebook anymore. And like I was in Facebook groups with 200,000 members that used to be a constant source of good conversations, and just it dried up. Why? I don't know, man. But it took me like 4 months to figure out, oh, that's not how you can grow your business anymore. You've got to find a new place. It used to be ridiculously easy. I'd spend 7 minutes a day. All my lead prospecting was done. It's super different now. But if I was still trying to sell like I'd sold 2 years ago, well, now I'd be broke because I would have no leads coming in.
Yeah, I think people get into habits of what they're comfortable with, and they'll just keep, trying to go at the same thing, even though it doesn't work. And then they just ask why, but they don't change. I do think like adaptability is a really good muscle to have as a marketer or a business owner. But yeah, it seems to have evolved a lot since the time where at least like the majority of people were on Facebook. That must have been a wee goldmine though.
Yeah.
We do also have a question from Arjun. And before I jump into this, I do want to say we have 10 minutes left of the session. So if you guys have any burning questions, like definitely try to get them in and we will try to get through them. So with that being said, we've got how to sell stats to a potential client, because a piece of content working well for X won't work for Y. And this question's for Laura specifically.
I'm not really sure what you mean by how to sell stats to a potential client. And then my follow-up question to you would be, are you trying to make money from X or are you trying to make money from Y? Do you have multiple segments that you're going after? Because a piece of content working well for X won't work for Y. Exactly. Which one are you trying to build a business off of? That's who you need to go after. But if you can just clarify, I don't know if you guys know what he's saying at the beginning. I'm not.
Sorry, you first, Erika.
Okay, Roslyn.
I'm wondering if it's to do with more like case studies. So one of the things that I noticed, at least when, let's say I had like an email marketing lead, and we work with some really big accounts, and I would show them the stats or the results that we got for big accounts, but then their response would be, yes, but I'm only turning over like 50K a month. So how do I know that this is going to work for me? I wonder if it's more of an objection-based question.
Okay, got it. So in that case, this actually happened to me where someone, was trying to work with me. I gave her all of the case studies. Oh yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And then she asked me for something extremely specific. And I was like, well, no, I don't have that. And in this case, I was just very honest with her. I was like, I've never done that before. This is my plan on how I'm going to do it for you if you want to work together. And let me know if you think I'm the right person. And now she's my client. So it's just, for case studies, they're not all going to be relevant, but just be true to how you work and just be honest with them. I think that's the best case scenario, because later down the line, if they find out you were lying or you weren't totally honest, they will leave you. So my policy is more like just be honest from the beginning. Even if you didn't do it, just say, yeah, no, I've never done that before, but this is how I plan on helping you.
I totally agree. I have a follow-up question for this one, and it's more geared towards on being a client. So let's say you're a client and you're looking for an agency or a specialist to work with. What's the best way to vet them? Because it can sound like butterflies and roses, and it can turn into an absolute nightmare. And we all know that there's been so many stories of businesses getting burned. So I would love to hear what you guys think on that.
I think I just have one thing here, and that is making sure that you're signing up with an agency that doesn't necessarily have a long commitment. So like, oh, you have to sign on, you have to stay on for a year. That's kind of like a red flag, because they kind of want to like catch you. For example, my agency, it's on a month-to-month basis. So if you don't think I'm performing 1 month, you can leave. And so like
I love that.
That's kind of like I would raise that as a red flag. That's the one I can think of. No problem, Arjun.
I agree. De-risking the overall contract is the right way, I think, to evaluate somebody. I have leads ask me fairly frequently, hey, can you, intro me to one of your ex-clients? And my answer is no, because I have like 5 sales calls a week, and I'm not going to send 2 people a week to one of my old clients. They're not paid to sell me. Now, I do get case studies and testimonials, and I do share them. And for some people, they're like, I won't do it if I don't get a call from an ex-client. And then I go, then goodbye, right? Like that's the deal breaker for me. I get their point of view. Many folks have had a bad marketer in the past. And I think if you're in the shoes of I've had a bad marketer, how I find a good one thing to really consider is marketers who are good at solving a problem in a certain size company might be awful at doing it in a different size company. Like, I'm very good at the cold start problem, right? I can take 0 to 1 million. That's easy. If you gave me a $10 million monthly account and said double it, I'd go, like, I don't know how. And so even though I'm a very good marketer at my thing, I would be awful at that area. Likewise, frequently you'll find, senior VP of marketing at Coke. I'm a junior startup, but this guy did at Coke. He must know marketing. No, he's used to 40 people telling him like he can tell what to do. And now he doesn't have that anymore. So find someone who's fit to your size problem is a big part of making sure you get a good agency experience.
Yeah.
I want to add 2 comments on this. I think so. It's a very competitive landscape. I agree with everything you said, Laura and Trevor. Like, I think that any agency that does contract for me, leave me alone. Every quote I'm getting with a contract, like, so I'll go somewhere else. And like, again, this is a trust relationship. So I think the first touch point needs to alleviate my insecurities, right, as a buyer. So I need to get some sort of audit, some sort of plan in advance prior to closing. If you expect me to pay in this market, because everybody has an SMMA, everybody has an agency today, everybody, it's crazy. I'm getting this question of, I'm starting an SMA, what should I do? Every day, literally every day. So if you're unable to tell me what you're going to do and how you're going to help me win, I'll go somewhere else. And I think it's very simple, and a lot of it is also gut, you need to feel that trust. It's so important to feel that ability you can buy in with someone, because like a marketing service is more than a lawyer or an accountant. It is trust, but it's more integrated with what you do daily. It really has to be synced with what you do as a business.
I love that.
Give an audit. That's a really good way to show, like, to really show that you know what you're talking about, that you can help them perform, and you can give them some kind of, not guarantee, but a plan on how to get where they want to go or the results they want. And at the same time, it makes them have, like, they will, on their way, they will think, okay, they give me this for free. I kind of, like, maybe I owe them something, at least to test them out, to try them out. If there's a good connection between the lead and the agency. But at the same time, I would say that it's the 1 month retention only. I think that's very delicate, depending on your business and on your service. Like, for some service, maybe you need at least 2 months or 3 months to really prove that you are the best person, or that you can get the results. So I think that really depends on what's your offer.
Yeah, I think so. Just being transparent on it as well in terms of the timeline, like, especially if it's something like SEO. But yeah, if you're looking for an agency or someone, ask them for an audit. It'll be enlightening on so many levels. So I do love that point. We do have one last question, and it's for me. So this is from Levi. What successes have you found doing email marketing? I'm trying to explore it, but I'm also not sure where to begin with it. Okay, so you would be shocked at people's buying habits. When you get into email marketing, you see a very vivid overview of the behind the scenes as to like how people conduct themselves on the buyer journey. Okay, so email marketing, it's very largely overseeing and looking at all the touch points on the buyer journey and optimizing those. So taking people from 0 to 1-time customers to 2 to 3. So it's really, if you're looking to learn it, it's really interesting. I would suggest that you go onto the Klaviyo Academy. It's free. It's a really good sort of starting point. And I hate to plug the platform because it's not sponsored. But Klaviyo is literally like the creme de la creme for email marketing, for e-com, okay? If you want to learn e-com email marketing, like, and I'm going to assume that that's where you kind of want to jump in to start, that would be my go-to. So yeah, if you're around, give me a DM on Discord and I will send you the link to that. But with that being said, do we have any closing thoughts on the session? Any last tips?
I would just say I totally agree with you with Klaviyo, because you converted me, and I did. You cannot compare it to anything else. It is amazing, and everything you can do with it, and how you can convert them and take them through all these different segmentations. I would highly recommend it with you.
Definitely. Thank you. Cool. So, any last words? Do we have any final quick tips before we close out the session?
Your
Just
business
thanks for having us.
Sorry, Laura.
We good?
All I said was thanks for having us. Sorry, Trevor, go.
Your business succeeds or fails based on your ability to generate more revenue than it costs to run your business. If you aren't at least twice a month checking to make sure that remains true, you're going to have a bad time with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's solid. We do have another session coming up next week. So we'll be back at exactly the same time, Tuesday at 2 p.m. EST. And this time we're going to be covering how you can actually transform your agency services to go from labor-centered to growth-centered. So anyone who wants to actually start an agency, if you're in the weeds of being in an agency, definitely pop along to that one. There'll be a ton of insights there. So thank you all so much for coming. Appreciate all the speakers. You guys were amazing.